Chapter 1. Fear, the phantom that follows the self.
Now let me tell y'all something that took me a good many years and a whole mess of unnecessary stress to understand. Most of the fear we carry around, it ain't real. Oh sure, it feels real. It creeps up on you in the middle of the night, wakes you up out of a dead sleep with a pounding heart and a dry mouth. But fear, most of the time, is a shadow we made ourselves, a ghost story we tell when we forget who we really are. Old Lao Tzu, wise as a mountain river, said it better than I ever could. He wrote, "Hope and fear are both phantoms that arise from thinking of the self. When we don't see the self as self, what do we have to fear?" Now that right there, that ain't just poetry, that's medicine. See, when we make everything about us, our success, our failure, our reputation, our image, our security, we build a little cage around our mind. And inside that cage, every little bump in the night sounds like a monster. Every uncertain future becomes a threat. And that cage, it's made of mirrors. We look around and all we see is our own reflection, our fears, our wants, our endless what-ifs. And hope? Folks don't usually lump hope in with fear, but Lao Tzu did. And I think he was right to, because when you hang all your peace on hope, on the future, turning out just so, you're gambling your joy away. Hope ain't bad, but it's slippery. It can turn into fear real quick the moment things stop going your way. What Lao Tzu's saying, if I can put it plain, is the more we make life about us, the more there is to lose. But when we step back, when we stop clinging so tight to who we think we are, to all the roles and titles and fears we've been carrying, something shifts. We stop being the center of the storm and start being the sky. You know what I mean? Let me give you a little story. I once knew a fella, Vietnam vet, had a tough life. Used to wake up sweating every night from nightmares. Tried every trick in the book, therapy, pills, prayer, whiskey, nothing worked. Then one day, out of nowhere, he told me, "You know what helps? Realizing it ain't me having those dreams, it's just the brain doing what it does." He stopped seeing himself as the center of his suffering, and that cracked the door open. Now, Lao Tzu ain't saying you should just pretend life's easy. No, sir. Life is hard. People get sick, dreams fall apart, bills pile up, hearts break. But what he is saying is that most of our suffering comes not from life itself, but from how we cling to life, from how we try to shape it, control it, make it all about us. The antidote to fear ain't bravery, it's humility. Let go of the need to be in charge of everything. Stop taking every outcome personal. That job you didn't get, that storm coming, that person who hurt you, it all feels like it's about you, but it ain't. It's just the world being the world. Nature don't worry, trees don't fret, rivers don't stop to panic when they hit a rock, they just go around it. And when we live closer to nature, not just the trees and dirt, but the nature of things, we find a peace that ain't based on guarantees. So here's your takeaway, friend. When fear shows up, ask yourself, who exactly is afraid? If the answer is my ego, my plans, my image, then maybe that fear ain't worth listening to. Let go of the self, and the fear has nothing to cling to.
Chapter 2. Let the river flow. Finding peace in the midst of change.
Now let me ask you something, friend. Have you ever tried holding back a river with your bare hands? No? Well, let me tell you, I have. Not literally, of course, but in my younger days, I fought change like a fool swinging at the wind. Lost jobs, breakups, moves I didn't want, health scares. I tried to wrestle every one of them into submission, and every time I ended up tired, bitter, and not one step closer to peace. Then I stumbled across these words from Lao Tzu. Life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like. Now that ain't just pretty language. That's the truth right there. See, life don't care much about our plans. It doesn't take votes or ask permission. It just moves, like seasons, like tides. We get older, people leave, things fall apart. And when we cling to the idea that life's supposed to stay put, we suffer. It's like trying to keep a sunset from going down. You can cry, you can yell, but the sun's going to set all the same. The smart thing ain't to stop it, it's to sit back and enjoy the colors while they last. Lao Tzu wasn't preaching passivity, mind you. He was teaching flow. He understood that resistance, fighting every little change, is what makes life heavier than it has to be. And buddy, I've hauled my share of unnecessary weight. Let me tell you about my neighbor, Carl. Worked the same factory job for 35 years. One day, layoffs hit. He fought it tooth and nail, said it wasn't fair, said he deserved better, got real bitter, spent a whole year blaming the world, refusing to adapt. Meanwhile, another guy, same age, same pink slip, took a course on woodworking, started selling hand-carved tables out his garage. Different attitude, same situation. One resisted, the other flowed. Carl stayed stuck. The other guy, he found a new rhythm. Now, change don't always feel good at first. Sometimes it knocks the wind out of you, but that don't mean it's wrong. Sometimes what feels like falling apart is just the start of something new. Lao Tzu said it right. Let reality be reality. That don't mean you gotta like everything that happens. It means you stop wasting your soul fighting what already is. You learn to bend like a willow instead of snapping like a dry old branch. When the wind of life picks up, and believe me, it always does, you got two choices. Dig in your heels and get dragged, or loosen your grip and go where it's trying to take you. And that takes trust. Not in fate or the universe or some magic force, but in the deeper wisdom that maybe, just maybe, things don't need our constant control to turn out all right. You ever notice how the best moments in life, the ones that make your heart swell, weren't planned? They just showed up, like wildflowers on the side of a road you didn't mean to take. Change is the rule, not the exception. And when you start treating it that way, life gets lighter. You stop taking every detour personal. You stop trying to freeze time like it's something you can bottle and keep on a shelf. So here's your reminder, old friend. You're not here to hold the river still. You're here to ride it. Let it twist. Let it turn. Let it show you places your plans never dreamed of. Because sometimes the detour is the destination.
Chapter 3. Stand on solid ground. Finding balance in an unsteady world. You ever tried climbing a ladder in the wind? I have. Back in my handyman days, I was fixing a loose shingle up on Mrs. Dobbins' roof. That ladder swayed like a drunk on payday. One gust of wind, and suddenly I remembered what it feels like to pray real fast. That's when it hit me. High places sure are pretty, but they ain't always stable. Lao Tzu put it better than I ever could. Whether you go up the ladder or down it, your position is shaky. When you stand with your 2 feet on the ground, you will always keep your balance. Now that's a piece of truth worth hanging on the wall. See, this modern world of ours, it's always trying to shove you up some ladder, chasing promotions, attention, likes, money, status, whatever shiny prize they're dangling this week. And folks believe that if they can just climb high enough, they'll finally feel secure. But here's the kicker. The higher you climb, the more nervous you get. Because deep down you know, one bad decision, one unexpected storm, and down you go. And even if you don't fall, you spend half your life looking over your shoulder, wondering who's gonna knock that ladder out from under you. Lao Tzu's wisdom ain't saying ambition is bad, it's saying attachment is. When your sense of self rises and falls with your position, you're going to be tossed around like a leaf in the wind. But when your feet are planted firmly on the ground, rooted in who you are, not what you've got, that's where real peace lives. I once knew a fella named Chuck, worked in finance, fancy suit, corner office, high on that ladder. Then one day, the market crashed, and boom, his whole world unraveled. He told me later, I wasn't afraid of losing the money. I was afraid of losing who I thought I was. Ain't that something? Now, contrast that with old Joe, who runs the bait shop. Joe don't own much, but every morning he opens that little shop, smiles at every customer, and heads home at sundown without a wrinkle of worry on his brow. He's steady. Why? Because Joe ain't leaning on lattice. He's standing on solid ground, knows who he is, and it ain't tied to titles or trophies. See, balance don't come from holding still in a world that's always moving. It comes from being centered inside yourself, whether life lifts you up or knocks you down. You learn to sway without falling, bend without breaking. That kind of balance, it don't come from books or podcasts or 20-step routines. It comes from learning to let go. Not in a give up sort of way, but in a I don't need to control everything to be okay kind of way. So how do you start? Stop trying to predict the future. You can't. Stop letting your mood ride shotgun with your bank account, your waistline, or your social status. And for heaven's sake, quit chasing the illusion that just one more thing will finally make you whole. Plant both feet in the now, in this moment, in this breath. That's where your power is. And when life tries to shove you up another shaky ladder, smile kindly, step aside and say, "No thanks, I'll walk my own path right here on the ground." Because the truth is, you don't have to climb to be free.
Chapter 4. The Peace of Letting Go, Living Without Forcing It. Now, I don't know about you, but I've spent a fair amount of my life trying to force square pegs into round holes. Pushing, straining, hustling, worrying. And wouldn't you know it, most of the time, the harder I tried to control everything, the more tangled up things got. See, we Americans were raised on the gospel of hard work and making things happen. But there's a fine line between good effort and plain old stubbornness. Lao Tzu had a name for the other way, a gentler, wiser way. He called it Wu Wei. That's a fancy-sounding Chinese phrase, but all it really means is non-forcing. It's the art of doing without pushing, of acting without straining. It's like how water flows, always moving, but never in a rush. It gets where it's going by finding the easiest path, not the hardest one. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, ain't that just laziness dressed up in silk robes? Not at all. Wu Wei ain't about sitting on the porch all day waiting for the mailman to bring you your dreams. It's about working with life, not against it. Kind of like sailing. You don't fight the wind, you adjust your sails. Let the current help you out, instead of wearing yourself out paddling upstream. Lao Tzu put it plain. There is no greater illusion than fear. Whoever can see through all fear will always be safe. You ever notice that most of our rushing, stressing, and controlling comes from fear? Fear that we'll fall behind. Fear that we'll miss out. Fear that if we don't do it all, we'll end up with nothing. But the truth is, that fear, it ain't real. It's a movie playing in your head. 9 times out of 10, the thing you're dreading never happens. And when it does, turns out you're a lot stronger than you gave yourself credit for. I had a neighbor named Hank. Used to run his life like a military operation. Always planning, always rushing, always fixing things that weren't broken. One day he lost his job and just about lost his mind with it. But a few months later, you know what happened? He started woodworking, just for the hell of it. Said it was the first time in years he wasn't anxious. When I asked him what changed, he said, "I stopped fighting what was happening and just went with it." That right there is Wu Wei in action. So how do you live like that? You slow down, you pay attention, you act when the time is right, not out of panic or pressure. And most of all, you learn to trust life, even when it ain't going the way you want it. Next time you feel that urge to grip the wheel tighter, to force the outcome, to scramble for control, pause, breathe, step back. Ask yourself, what would water do? Because water never forces, but it always gets where it's going. And when you stop trying to micromanage the whole damn universe, you start to notice something beautiful. Things begin to fall into place, not because you forced them, but because you finally got out of your own way.
Chapter 5. Loving the world as yourself. The end of fear. Now let me tell you something that took me most of my life to learn. You don't calm a storm by yelling at the sky. You calm it by becoming still inside yourself. That stillness, that peace, it don't come from control. It comes from connection with the world around you and with the part of yourself that ain't always looking to take or win or be right. Lao Tzu said it best: love the world as yourself. Not tolerate it, not get what you can from it, not hide from it. Love it. Care for it the same way you'd care for your own tired bones or your own child's hand in yours. Now, that might sound simple, even soft, but let me tell you, it's the hardest and strongest thing you'll ever do. Why? Because most of us don't even love ourselves properly. We beat ourselves up over mistakes, chase perfection, compare ourselves to everyone else, and tie our worth to things that can vanish in a blink. And when you treat yourself like that, how the hell are you going to treat the rest of the world with any kind of grace? But Lao Tzu's message is this: when you start to see no real separation between yourself and everything else, fear just don't make much sense anymore. You stop trying to dominate the world and start trying to understand it. You stop clinging to the past and stop fretting about the future. You just be fully present, open-hearted, and not so scared all the damn time. Now I know in this world we live in, full of noise, arguments, screens, and stress, that can feel like a pipe dream. But I promise you, the moment you stop trying to win every battle and start walking with the world instead of against it, that's the moment your soul starts to breathe again. Look around. That tree out your window, it doesn't rush to bloom. That river down the road, it don't complain about its path. The sun rises without needing applause. When you learn to live like that, easy, rooted, grateful, fear don't stand a chance. The ego wants to tell you you're separate, you're special, you're in danger if you let go. But Lao Tzu shows us something else, that real strength comes not from separation, but from unity. When you care for all things as you care for yourself, ego-driven anxieties are transformed into compassion and unity. Ain't that the truth? A closing thought from an old friend. You know, I've walked a lot of miles in this life. Made mistakes, lost folks, held on to things too tight, let other things slip away. But if I could go back and whisper something into the ear of my younger self, something simple, something true, I think it'd be this: let go more, love deeper, live slower. Life ain't about winning,
It's about walking through the world with open hands and a soft heart. And the funny thing is, that's where the real power lives. In humility, in stillness, in trust. So if this old voice made you pause today, if it gave you a little clarity or a little comfort or just a reason to breathe a little deeper, consider subscribing. Not for me, for you. For more wisdom, more peace, and more reminders that you ain't alone out here. Because like Lao Tzu said, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Let's walk this road slow together.